Hiding in our bedroom, I heard my family plan my birthday surprise through the heating vent. My daughter sneered. She actually thinks we're throwing her a party tomorrow while discussing divorce papers. I smiled and quietly prepared my counterattack. The conversation drifted up through the metal grate from Elijah's office directly below. After 32 years of marriage, I knew every sound this house made, including how voices carried through the heating system I'd designed when we renovated 5 years ago. Now that same system was betraying my family's secrets. "Dad, are you sure the lawyer said the eviction notice is legal?" Lucas's voice carried the clinical detachment he used in court. My son, the attorney I'd put through law school by working double shifts at the construction company. "We've covered everything," Elijah responded with satisfaction. "The business transfer, the house deed, the divorce papers. By tomorrow night, your mother won't own anything except that ancient Honda she refuses to sell." I pressed my ear closer to the grate, my knees grinding into the carpet as my family casually discussed my erasure. Sophia's laugh was particularly cruel as she asked, "And Patricia's ready to move in this weekend?" Patricia Lawson, the recent widow who'd inherited her husband's construction supply business. I'd watched her circle Elijah at industry events for months, her hand lingering on his arm just a beat too long during conversations about material deliveries and project timelines. "Patricia understands the timeline," Elijah said, his voice holding warmth I hadn't heard directed at me in over a year. "She's already moved some things into the downtown storage unit. Once Abigail is out, we can start fresh." My hand found the edge of our bed frame, gripping until my knuckles went white. Through the vent, I heard chairs scraping against Elijah's office floor. Lucas's voice carried up again, explaining the legal protections they'd built into their ambush. "The transfer documents are ironclad. I've structured it so she can't claim coercion. As long as she signs willingly, thinking it's something else, we're protected." Protected from me. The woman who'd spent 3 decades building the life they were systematically dismantling. I crawled backward from the vent, my movements silent on the thick carpet I'd chosen specifically for its sound-dampening qualities. Standing on shaking legs, I moved to our bedroom window and looked out at the backyard where we'd raised our children. The swing set was long gone, replaced by Elijah's workshop, but I could still see the ghost of it in the worn patch of grass that had never fully recovered. They thought I was oblivious, content in my routine, blind to their machinations. What they didn't understand was that my apparent contentment masked 30 years of careful observation and strategic thinking. I hadn't survived in construction by being naive about people's motivations. Walking to our closet, I pulled down my small business travel suitcase and began selecting items that predated my marriage to Elijah. The pearl necklace from my high school graduation, the watch I'd bought with my first paycheck, the photo album from college, before Elijah existed in my world. But more importantly, I retrieved the thin folder I kept behind my winter coats, containing documents they had no idea existed. 3 years ago, I'd noticed discrepancies in our business accounts. Nothing dramatic, just small redirections and inflated expenses that made my accounting background itch with suspicion. I'd started keeping separate records, photocopying contracts, and maintaining my own client contact database. What began as protective documentation had evolved into a comprehensive backup system that mirrored our entire operation. I also had something they'd completely forgotten about, my separate consulting business. For 5 years, I'd been handling small residential projects that Elijah dismissed as not worth our time. Those jobs had generated over $40,000 in a business account under my maiden name, money they'd never seen, never counted, never factored into their calculations. The irony was perfect. While they plotted to leave me with nothing, I'd been quietly building my own foundation. Downstairs, I heard the office door open and footsteps scatter through the house. Elijah's heavy tread moved toward the kitchen. Lucas's lighter steps headed to the front door, probably returning to his downtown apartment, the one I'd co-signed for when his credit wasn't sufficient. Sophia's heels clicked toward the garage where her BMW sat, the car we'd given her for completing her master's degree in art history. I tucked the suitcase back into the closet and went downstairs with practiced normalcy. Elijah stood at the kitchen counter pouring coffee into his favorite mug, the one with the hairline crack that Lucas had given him years ago. When I entered, he looked up with barely concealed guilt. "Morning plans?" I asked, pulling my own mug from the cabinet. "Just some paperwork in the office." He couldn't meet my eyes. "Tomorrow's a big day, your birthday." The word sat between us like a loaded weapon. 60 years old. I added cream to my coffee, watching it swirl and disappear into the darkness. "I suppose that's worth celebrating. We have something special planned." His smile was theatrical, rehearsed. "You'll be surprised." Oh, I would be, but not in the way he expected. The morning stretched ahead with deceptive routine. I drove to our construction company's warehouse where Carlos greeted me with his usual expression of professional concern. 3 pallets of premium oak flooring had vanished from our system overnight. 2 shipments of marble had been redirected without proper authorization. The security cameras had mysteriously malfunctioned during the exact windows when these changes occurred. "Mrs. B," Carlos said, lowering his voice, "something's not right here. These aren't accidents or software glitches. Someone with administrative access is making these changes." I patted his shoulder. This loyal man who'd worked for us since the beginning. "I know, Carlos. Don't worry about it. Just document everything carefully, okay?" He nodded, confusion clear on his face. He didn't understand why I wasn't more upset. How could I explain that stolen flooring was the least of my concerns when my entire life was being systematically dismantled by the people I trusted most? The rest of the day passed in surreal theater. I attended meetings, signed purchase orders, and solved problems while my mind raced through strategic calculations. Every interaction with Lucas felt choreographed. He stopped by the office to discuss the inventory software issues, his face a mask of professional concern, while knowing he'd orchestrated the entire situation. Sophia called to confirm Sunday family dinner, her voice bright and false. "We'll celebrate your birthday properly then, Mom. Just family, like you prefer." I agreed, matching her tone. Both of us performed our roles in this elaborate deception while I calculated exactly what her art gallery was worth and how quickly it could be liquidated under financial pressure. That evening, I stood in my kitchen preparing dinner while Elijah worked in his office below. Through the vent, I could hear him on the phone, his voice low and intimate. Tomorrow, they planned to serve me papers at what I believed was my birthday celebration. Tomorrow, they would watch me sign away everything I'd spent 32 years building. But tonight, I was programming 3 crucial numbers into my phone. Margaret Winters, forensic accountant and my college roommate who'd built a career finding hidden assets in divorce cases. James Ashford, corporate attorney who owed me a significant favor after I'd hidden his daughter from an abusive husband 3 years ago. And Detective Riley Blake, who still had lingering questions about my former business partner's death 8 years ago. The same Robert Lawson, whose widow Patricia was now positioning herself to inherit my life. I smiled as I plated dinner, a genuine smile for the first time all day. They thought tomorrow was their carefully orchestrated finale. They had no idea it was actually just the opening move in a game where I held all the strategic advantages they'd forgotten about. Morning arrived with theatrical precision. Elijah appeared at my bedside with coffee, his hands shaking as he set the mug on my nightstand. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. Wear the blue dress today, the one from our anniversary dinner last year." His voice carried odd formality, like he was reading from a memorized script. "We have something special planned for you downstairs." The blue dress still hung in our closet with tags attached. I'd bought it for our anniversary, but we'd never made it to dinner. Elijah had claimed a construction emergency, though I'd later found a restaurant receipt in his jacket for a table for 2 downtown. Walking downstairs felt different this morning. The family photos lining the stairway seemed to watch my descent with knowing eyes. At the bottom, our living room had been rearranged. Furniture pushed against walls, creating an open space where our mahogany coffee table sat like an altar for sacrifice. Morning light streaming through windows illuminated a thick manila folder placed precisely in the center. Lucas stood by the front door in full courtroom attire despite it being Saturday, his phone held at an angle, suggesting he was recording. Sophia positioned herself near the garage hallway, her own phone raised, a satisfied smile playing at her lips. They'd formed a strategic triangle with me at the center, surrounded. "Please sit down, Abigail." Elijah gestured to a kitchen chair they'd positioned facing the table. Not my usual spot where I'd shared thousands of morning coffees, but a defendant's chair brought in specifically for this moment. Lucas cleared his throat and stepped forward, his lawyer voice replacing any trace of the son who used to call me for homework help. "Mom, we need to discuss changes to the family structure and business arrangements. What we're presenting today is the result of careful legal consultation." The folder opened under Elijah's fingers, revealing documents marked with yellow tabs indicating signature lines. So many tabs. A lifetime of tabs. Lucas continued with practiced precision. "The first document is a dissolution of marriage filing. The terms are generous considering the circumstances. You'll receive your personal belongings and the Honda. The second transfers your business interest to Dad, recognizing his role as primary operator. The third relinquishes claim to this property, acknowledging that improvements were funded primarily through Dad's efforts." Each word landed with calculated impact, but Elijah delivered the personal blow. "We've grown apart, Abigail. This is best for everyone, a chance for new chapters." His rehearsed speech faltered as he gestured at the papers. "Patricia Lawson has been helping us navigate this transition. She understands business, understands what we need moving forward." Sophia finally spoke, her cruelty perfectly calibrated. "We've already moved your things to the garage, Mom. The stuff that's actually yours anyway. Most of it was Dad's money that bought everything else." She lowered her phone to look directly at me. "It's all sorted, labeled, ready for you to take." The silence that followed felt alive, breathing in the space between us. Through the front window, I caught movement. Mrs. Henderson from across the street stood in her garden, pretending to water plants that didn't need watering. Our neighbor Tom had chosen this moment to check his mailbox for the third time this morning. The whole neighborhood knew. They'd been invited to witness my humiliation. "You're pathetic, Mom." Sophia's words cut with surgical precision. "Did you really think we needed you anymore? Dad built this business. Lucas has the legal expertise. I have my career, my gallery. What exactly do you contribute except going through motions every day like some kind of robot?" Lucas's chuckle came sharp and quick, a sound I'd never heard from him before. Elijah's nervous laugh followed, high and strained. The sound echoed off walls I'd spent 3 decades filling with what I'd thought was love. Movement from the kitchen caught my attention. Marcus Webb stepped into view, Lucas's law school friend who'd attended dozens of dinners at this table. He held his briefcase like a shield, his expression professionally neutral. "I'm here as witness," he announced unnecessarily, "to verify all signatures are given freely and without coercion." The pen appeared in Elijah's hand. Expensive, heavy, the Mont Blanc I'd given him when he'd landed our first major contract. He extended it toward me with the same hand that had held mine through labor pains, my mother's funeral, and ordinary Tuesday mornings that now felt like treasures I'd never properly valued. I took the pen, feeling its weight, final and significant. The room held its breath as I pulled the first document toward me. Lucas shifted position, ensuring his phone captured everything. Sophia zoomed in with hers. Elijah's breathing grew audible in the silence. My signature flowed across the first yellow tab with practiced ease. Then the second, third, each name written with careful penmanship my mother had insisted I perfect, back when signatures meant promises, and promises meant something. I signed away the house where my children had taken first steps. I signed away the business I'd helped build from a single truck and a dream. I signed away 32 years of marriage with the same steady hand that had once signed our marriage certificate. When the final signature was complete, I set down the pen with a soft click against mahogany. Looking up, I met each of their eyes in turn. Lucas's held triumph mixed with uncertainty. Sophia's phone lowered as she processed my calm. Elijah stepped backward as if I might explode, might rage, might become the scene they'd prepared for. Instead, I smiled. A real smile, the kind that reached my eyes and transformed my face into something they hadn't seen in years. Peace. It unnerved them more than any scream could have. "Thank you," I said gently, rising from the chair with deliberate grace. "This makes everything so much simpler." My steady composure lasted exactly until I closed the Honda's door behind me. The old car's engine turned over on the third try, just as it had for 15 years, and I drove away from my former life with 2 suitcases and silence so complete it felt like drowning. The extended stay hotel sat 12 miles from the house, far enough that no one from our social circle would accidentally spot my car. The desk clerk barely glanced up as I counted out cash for a week's stay. Room 237 smelled like industrial disinfectant and broken dreams, but it had a door that locked and a bed not shared with a man who'd been planning my disposal for months. I powered off my phone, removed the SIM card, and spread the documents I'd photographed across the bed. Lucas's legal language was precisely arrogant, with clauses buried in subsections assuming I'd sign without reading. One clause particularly stood out. A non-compete preventing me from working in construction within a 500-mile radius. Unenforceable under state law, but they didn't know I knew that. At midnight, I walked to the hotel's business center and made my first call. Margaret Winters answered on the second ring, voice alert despite the hour. "Abigail, this number isn't yours." Her voice sharpened with concern. "I need your expertise, Margaret, confidentially. Can we meet tomorrow?" "Where and when?" No questions about midnight calls from unknown numbers. Margaret had handled enough ugly divorces to recognize a woman in crisis. The second call required delicate handling. "James, it's Abigail Brennan. I'm calling in that favor." His pause lasted 3 seconds. "I'll clear my morning schedule. Private office entrance, 7 sharp. The third call made my hands shake. "Detective Blake, this is Abigail Brennan. I have information about Robert Lawson that might interest you." "That case has been cold for 8 years, Mrs. Brennan." "It won't be cold after you hear what I've learned about Patricia Lawson's previous husband, the one who died 5 years before Robert." The silence stretched long enough that I wondered if he'd hung up. Then, "Can you come to the precinct tomorrow afternoon? Bring everything you have." By dawn, my powered-off phone had accumulated 17 missed calls. Carlos, my warehouse manager, had sent increasingly urgent emails to my backup account. I called him from the hotel phone, knowing he'd be at work by 5:30. "Mrs. B, thank God, everything's going crazy here. Mr. B showed up at 4 a.m. with that Lawson woman, made me change all computer passwords, said you were taking medical leave." His voice dropped. She was measuring offices, talking about renovations. "Carlos, document everything, every change, every visitor, every unusual order. Can you do that without being obvious?" "You gave me a chance when nobody else would, Mrs. B. I don't forget that." Over the next 2 hours, intelligence flooded in. 3 major clients had called Carlos directly, confused about emails from Lucas announcing restructuring and price increases. 2 suppliers reported payment terms unilaterally changed from 30 to 90 days. The Riverside project foreman mentioned inferior materials delivered that morning, despite specs clearly calling for premium grade. But the most valuable information came from Nancy Palmer, who ran the coffee shop where Elijah met customers. Someone had told her I might be at the hotel. "Honey, I don't know what's happening in your world, but that husband of yours has been meeting Patricia Lawson every Tuesday and Thursday morning for 18 months. Corner booth thought they were being discreet." She paused. My cousin Linda works at the courthouse. Patricia's been filing documents 3 times this month, same types she filed before her second husband's sudden heart attack. The pattern became clear. Elijah hadn't fallen for another woman or grown bored with marriage. He'd been selected, groomed, positioned for something far worse than divorce. Patricia Lawson didn't just steal businesses. She eliminated their owners after securing control. Margaret Winters arrived at my hotel room at 7 a.m. the next morning, carrying 2 laptops and files that made the desk groan. Her expression shifted from professional concern to genuine alarm when she saw my photographed documents spread across the bed. After 90 minutes of analysis, her fingers flying across calculator keys, she looked up grimly. 3 years, Abigail. They've been bleeding the company for 3 years. The patterns are clear once you know what to look for. Her laptop displayed spreadsheets telling a story of systematic theft. Funds diverted through fake vendor payments. Legitimate expenses inflated 30% with excess routed to Cayman Islands accounts. Construction materials purchased but never delivered. Costs written off as losses. The total made my stomach turn. $1.2 million methodically stolen while I'd focused on daily operations. Lucas's digital signature appears on every fraudulent document, Margaret continued, highlighting specific transactions. He used his law firm's credibility to authorize transfers that would never pass real audit. And here, she pointed to equipment sales from 6 months ago. Your daughter sold 3 excavators and a crane through a third party, half market value, and the buyer was a shell company traced back to an art gallery. Sophia's gallery. The one we'd celebrated with champagne and proud parent photos. Every opening, every exhibition, funded by stolen equipment from the company her grandfather had started with bare hands and a single truck. Margaret's most damning discovery came from cross-referencing dates. Patricia Lawson's name appears on signature cards for your business accounts 2 weeks before your birthday, before divorce papers were filed. They were so confident you'd sign, they'd already started transfer processes. My phone buzzed with a text from Carlos. Need to talk in person. Urgent. I met him at a diner 5 miles from the warehouse, choosing a booth where I could watch the door. Carlos slid across from me with movement suggesting he'd been looking over his shoulder. Mrs. B, I stayed late last night, pretending inventory. Around 9 p.m., your husband showed up with that Lawson woman. They didn't know I was in upper storage. He pulled out his phone, swiping to a recording app. I recorded this. The audio was muffled but clear. Elijah's voice. Once the divorce is finalized, we can liquidate assets more aggressively. Then Patricia, tone cold and businesslike. Timeline is critical. We need her completely removed from decision-making. If she tries to interfere, we'll handle it. I've handled obstacles before. There's more, Carlos whispered. I checked security this morning. Someone deleted footage from 3 specific nights, but they didn't know about the backup drive I installed in the ceiling. I have everything. The footage showed Elijah and Patricia photographing inventory lists, client contracts, supplier agreements. In one frame, Patricia was on her phone while pointing at our client database. The timestamp showed 3 weeks before my birthday. They're planning to gut the company, sell it piece by piece, Carlos said. I heard her mention buyers from Phoenix who want the contracts but not employees. Everyone would be terminated. Detective Blake's call came as I drove back. Can you meet at the precinct now? What I found. We need to discuss immediately. His office was still cluttered with case files and coffee cups, but his expression was sharper, more focused. Patricia Lawson's first husband died of heart attack at 48. Her second, Robert, at 52. Both cremated within 48 hours. Unusual, but not illegal. But here's what we missed the first time. He spread photos across his desk. Both men increased life insurance policies 6 months before deaths. Both named Patricia as beneficiary. Both had identical symptoms in final weeks: fatigue, shortness of breath, chest pain. Classic signs of digitalis poisoning, which mimics heart attack symptoms. He pulled up another document. Your husband increased his life insurance last month $2 million. Patricia's listed as secondary beneficiary after you, but once divorce is finalized, she becomes primary. The room felt smaller, implications crushing. This wasn't just about money or business. Patricia had graduated from financial murder to the actual kind. My tech specialist recovered deleted texts from a phone Patricia thought she'd destroyed. She and your husband discussed permanent solutions and timeline adjustments regarding someone they refer to as the obstacle. Given context, we believe that's you. My phone rang with an unknown number, Michael Riverside, whose housing development represented 40% of our current contracts. Abigail, I'm calling directly because something's wrong. Lucas missed our meeting yesterday, then sent substandard materials that weren't even close to spec. My foreman had to refuse delivery. That lumber could have caused catastrophic failure. His voice hardened. I heard you're no longer with the company. Is that true? It's complicated, Michael. Then uncomplicate it. I hired your company because of your reputation for quality. If you're starting something new, I want in. The contract can be transferred if terms are met. 2 more clients called within the hour with similar concerns. Lucas's incompetence was destroying relationships I'd spent 20 years building. Sophia's material substitutions had caused a minor collapse at one job site. No injuries, but liability issues were mounting. By evening, I had 3 file boxes of evidence: financial fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, corporate sabotage, enough documentation to destroy everyone who'd laughed at my humiliation 48 hours ago. That night, I sat surrounded by 12 manila envelopes, each labeled with different destinations. The IRS would receive tax fraud documentation. The state attorney general would get embezzlement evidence. The construction board would learn about safety violations. Patricia's insurance companies would discover patterns in beneficiary history. But the masterpiece was the package for Channel 7's investigative reporter, Dana Foster, who'd been seeking corporate corruption stories. I included enough evidence to launch investigation, holding back the most damaging revelations for perfect timing. Each package contained different puzzle pieces, ensuring multiple investigations would launch simultaneously. No single agency would have the complete picture, but together they'd create an inescapable net. The 12th envelope was different. It contained a single photograph: Patricia and Elijah at the warehouse and a note. I know everything. Your move. Dawn arrived with me at the postal counter, watching the clerk process 11 certified packages. Each envelope disappeared with tracking numbers I carefully recorded. The 12th would be courier delivered at exactly 2 p.m., giving official investigations a 6-hour head start. By the time federal agents pulled into Brennan Construction's parking lot the machinery of justice was already grinding forward. Through a borrowed telescope, I watched employees gathering at windows, confusion visible even from my new temporary office at Sterling Construction across the district. My phone, silent for nearly 2 weeks, began its symphony at Elijah's first voicemail. Abigail, something's happening. IRS froze all accounts. They're saying fraudulent tax filings. This has to be a mistake. Call immediately. 5 minutes later. State Attorney General's here with warrants. They're seizing computers. Abigail, whatever you think happened, this isn't the way, please. Lucas's message Mother, I don't know what you've done, but you're destroying everything grandfather built. We can resolve this privately. As your attorney, as your son, I'm advising you to contact me immediately. By noon, the voicemails had evolved. Elijah's voice progressed from confusion to anger to panic. They found offshore accounts. How did you know about offshore accounts? Patricia says you must have been spying illegally. We'll fight this, Abigail. You won't win. Lucas's legal threats dissolved into desperate negotiation. Construction boards threatening license revocation. 3 projects canceled contracts. Mom, please, let's talk rationally. We can work something out. But Sophia's message carried the most striking transformation. Her usually confident voice cracked with genuine fear. "Mom, my gallery's been seized. They say it was bought with embezzled funds. I don't understand what's happening. I don't have anywhere to go. The apartment was in the company's name. My cards don't work. Mom, I don't know how to. I've never had to. Please call me." 42 calls total by 3 p.m. I documented each one, saving voicemails to multiple devices. Evidence of their panic would be useful if they tried claiming ignorance later. The courier confirmed Patricia's package delivery by Jennifer Hayes' investigator sent photos exceeding my wildest expectations. Patricia stood on her penthouse balcony, hurling what appeared to be Elijah's clothes into afternoon air. Expensive suits floated down like surrender flags while she screamed loud enough for neighboring buildings to hear. "She found the photos in the package," Jennifer explained over the phone. "Pictures of Elijah with 2 different women at hotel bars over the past year. He's been playing her while she was playing him. She's destroying everything he left at her place." Video footage showed Elijah arriving at the building, looking up at the clothing rain, then backing away as Patricia threw a laptop that exploded on sidewalk near his feet. Building security had to restrain her when she came down with scissors, threatening to cut up his car seats. Elijah fled to a motel off Highway 9, same one where you stayed, actually. He's 3 doors from your old room. The irony was poetic. The man who orchestrated my exile was now living in the same cheap motel, eating from the same vending machines, experiencing the same crushing realization that everything he'd controlled had slipped away. Rebecca Sterling and I spent the afternoon visiting clients who'd expressed concerns about Brennan Construction's stability. The Riverside meeting was particularly satisfying. "Abigail, I'm glad you're here. I received a call from Lucas Brennan this morning threatening legal action if I break our contract. 20 minutes later, news broke about federal investigations. I want Sterling Construction to take over immediately, with you personally overseeing the project. We visited 6 clients that day. Each signed transfer agreements, moving contracts to Sterling Construction. Combined value exceeded $8 million, more than Brennan Construction's entire annual revenue." Carlos called as we returned to the office. "Mrs. B, it's chaos here. 17 workers have quit. The rest are updating resumes. Lucas tried running a safety meeting but didn't know basic protocols. Someone called OSHA about violations. They're coming Monday." Carlos, "Sterling Construction needs an experienced warehouse manager. Same crew, better pay, actual safety standards. Interested?" His relief was audible. "When do I start?" By evening, Rebecca and I had hired 12 of Brennan Construction's best employees, secured 4 major contracts, and established transition timelines that would have the Riverside project back on schedule within a week. "You know what's beautiful?" Rebecca said, watching the last government vehicle leave Brennan Construction through her telescope. "You didn't destroy them. You removed yourself from the equation and let them reveal who they really were. The fraud, theft, incompetence, it was always there. You were just the foundation holding it together." My phone buzzed with text 43 from Elijah. "Patricia knows about other women. She's threatening police about something. I don't know what you've started, but it's destroying everything." I deleted the message without responding. Tomorrow, news would break publicly. Dana Foster's investigative report would air during evening news. The construction community would learn about fraud, safety violations, federal investigations. By weekend's end, Brennan Construction would exist only as a cautionary tale about greed and betrayal. That night, federal agents escorted Elijah from the Highway 9 motel in handcuffs, his expensive suit replaced by rumpled clothes he'd worn for days. The timestamp showed exactly 3 weeks since my birthday ambush. Lucas's arrest happened at his law firm, colleagues backing away as agents led him out through the main entrance. His public downfall played out before senior partners who'd once praised his ruthless efficiency. Sophia's arrest was quieter, but complete. The gallery she'd loved was wrapped in yellow tape, windows blocked by federal seizure notices. Agents found her in the back office, surrounded by pieces she could no longer sell from a business that no longer existed. Patricia Lawson's arrest provided evening's dramatic climax. News helicopters circled her penthouse as she screamed about rights and conspiracies. Footage showed her being dragged out in designer heels and silk robe, perfectly styled hair finally disheveled. Additional charges were being prepared related to her previous husband's deaths. 6 months later, I stood at my new apartment window, watching sunrise paint the same sky over everything that had changed. Coffee came from a machine I'd chosen, brewed exactly how I preferred without considering anyone else's taste. The handmade ceramic mug from a local artist had no history, no memories, no ghosts of better times. Every piece of furniture told no stories of compromise. The leather reading chair by the window had caught my eye at an estate sale. I bought it without asking permission or checking joint accounts. Above my dining table hung photographs from the past months. Carlos's family at a barbecue, Rebecca and me signing contracts, the Riverside Project's completion ceremony where Michael Riverside publicly credited me with saving his development. The partnership ceremony at Sterling Construction had filled a conference room with people who'd watched my public humiliation and private rebuilding. Rebecca stood at the podium, her voice carrying authority across the room. 6 months ago, this company gained something invaluable: integrity in human form. Abigail Brennan rebuilt herself in our commercial division simultaneously, securing $8 million in new contracts while maintaining perfect safety record. Today, she becomes my equal partner, though she's always been my equal in every way that matters. That applause felt different from any recognition I'd received before. This was earned entirely by my own efforts, not reflected glory from a husband's success or children's achievements. The champagne tasted sweeter because I'd paid for it myself. The sentencing results arrived in my new office's mail. Elijah got 7 years for fraud and conspiracy. Patricia received life without parole after they connected her to 4 murders across 3 states. Lucas got 2 years and permanent disbarment. Sophia received probation and community service, though halfway house reports indicated she was finally learning basic life skills. I kept their letters in a folder marked birthday gifts, not from cruelty but as evidence of consequences. They'd given me divorce papers and eviction notices, thinking they were ending my story. Instead, they'd freed me to write a better one. Standing in my office as another day ended, I watched city lights begin their nightly show. Somewhere in federal prisons, the people who'd tried to erase me were learning what erasure really felt like. Those 42 desperate calls had come too late. Karma had been set in motion the moment they chose cruelty over compassion. My phone sat silent on my desk, no longer a source of dread, but a tool for the business I was building on my own terms. Tomorrow would bring new contracts, new challenges, new opportunities to prove that the best revenge wasn't destruction but reconstruction. I had built something beautiful from their ashes, and it was entirely mine.